William Pfeffer, QM2, Quartermaster Second Class. Hit with a B-40, the original strike was a B-40 rocket, which severed our steering and throttles in the pilot house. We were hit with 3 B-40 rockets, and when we were on the gunnel, trying to make our way back to the aft steering, we were hit again, and we ended up in the river. So we tried to get back to the ship, but we were taking fire from the shore pretty rapidly, and we didn't have a lot of weaponry with us because we were driving the boat and navigating the river. So Ensign Barber was grazed by a bullet in the head, and I had fractured this finger. The bone was over my wedding ring, and so we made it around to the back side of an island and dug in. We thought about swimming over to there was another Vietnamese Army base, South Vietnamese Army base. We thought about trying to make it over there before nightfall, but we started and they started shooting at us from there because they didn't know who we were. So we went back to the island, dug in, and Lieutenant Barber lost most of his clothing, so we shared mine for the night. Tide was out when we dug in, so during the night the tide rose and came up, and we knew we couldn't move, so we just laid there in the water. The tide didn't rise to our heads, so we were lucky there. And that's where we spent the night. You know, they didn't know we were there, and they didn't know where we were at. They immediately, when you're missing personnel, they'll send up gunships at night, and they'll circle the area where last known position was, and you know to stay down. We could hear the Viet Cong on the island, and it circled and all night long in continuous strafing. We could see every 5th round was a tracer, so we knew they were up there and protecting us. And that's where we spent the night. I know we were, both scared, mighty lonely. And you didn't know if the enemy would try to, the enemy knew they were out there. And then we were just hopeful that we could get off there before, Spooky left and they could start moving, the enemy could start moving again. And we were very fortunate. Well, as soon as daylight came, we started, the curfews lifted on the river, and the sampans are coming down to fish, and the smaller trawlers and that. As I said, Ensign Barber took off his boxers and took my K-bar and waved it in the air, but they wouldn't respond, and so I swam out to the nearest one and bargained with them to give my watch up, and he also gave his up, and we were able to get on board. And then there was a Army advisor, American Army advisor that had been on board that we were transporting back to the mouth of the river, and he didn't spend the night with us, but he decided he was going to explore when we first got to the island, and so we had to go back to the island and pick him up. And so the small sampan took, 3 good-sized Americans to the mouth of the river. We could hear the search and rescue teams from other swift boats up and down the river that night. looking, bringing out the 101, doing their salvage operations, but they didn't know where we were, and we couldn't get around where they were, and if we had, they would have probably shot us. So we just stayed where we were. Sampan took us to the Vietnamese naval base. They notified Da Nang, and a helicopter came in and picked us up and took us to the Da Nang Naval Hospital. We got to see Gary Peterson was injured in the Naval Hospital. We didn't see him that day. We met up with Larry and Ron back at our barracks. A couple of days later, Ensign Barber and I went over to see Gary in the hospital before he got transported to, I think, Japan for further medical. And it was kind of neat. I mean, Ron thought that Ensign Barber and I had burned up in the cabin these mattresses that had burned to